Okay, well, it looks like everybody is on, and it sounds like everybody's sound is good. So, thank you for that feedback. We're going to go ahead and jump in and get started with our session for today. Have a little bit of an allergy situation going on, so if I cough or sneeze a little bit, please forgive me. I don't have COVID, I just have allergies, so please be patient with me with that. Today's topic is the business model canvas. For those of you that have joined us before for this series, these are standalone classes, so you can attend one class or you can attend all eight. If you attend all eight sessions, they kind of go in a natural sequence, and we're talking about putting together a business plan. But for today's session, we're talking about the business model canvas, which is kind of the way I think about a business model canvas is it's kind of almost like a new adaptation or a new twist on the business plan. So it's really not in place of a business plan, but it is kind of a good place to start or a good supplemental piece to a business plan. We're going to talk all about what the business model canvas looks like and how it can be useful to you as you go through this process of putting together a business plan for your business. Those of you that have had me before know that I always do a shout out to the Small Business Center. Our session today is hosted by Blue Ridge Community College. Ben Smith is the director there. The Small Business Center is a statewide organization. They're affiliated with, there's one affiliated with one of every 58 community colleges across the state. And so if Blue Ridge is not your home small business center, but you are located in North Carolina, I would encourage you to reach out to your local community college and connect with that small business center director. Again, in Hendersonville and Brevard is Blue Ridge Community College, and your director there is Ben Smith. What does the Small Business Center do for you? Well, number one, it's a prepaid service. It's paid for by your tax dollars. So that's a great resource for a small business or a new business as you're getting started to be able to have some of these services that don't cost you anything because you're probably on a really tight budget. So you'll have ongoing webinars and seminars. They'll also connect you with local resources, be it landlords or CPAs, attorneys, realtors, all kinds of various connections in your local community. And then one of the more valuable benefits is their one-on-one confidential business counseling. So if you would like to have a sit-down video conference with the Small Business Center and just say, hey, I took one of your sessions, got some good information, but I'd love to bounce some ideas off of you, or I'd love to talk about some of the things that came up as they relate specifically to my business, then that's what you would do. You would reach out to your Small Business Center and have those conversations. So last time, and again, if you did not attend our previous sessions, there's no worries, there's no concerns. We're not going to build on any of the information that we've covered before. But if you are going through each of the sessions, I want to make sure that we kind of follow that path. And so this is our third session in this series. And the last session, we talked about doing some initial research for your business plan. And we kind of went through all of the different tools that you can use and some of the reasons why that research is so important to substantiate the information you put in your business plan. Today, we're going to talk about business models and get a little bit more specific into some of those things that we've talked about. So what is a business model? That can really be interpreted a lot of different ways, but if you're looking at the business planning process and putting together a business plan, when you look at a business model and what we mean by that, here's what we're talking about. It basically is the plan for your operation. And so people look at that and they say, well, what's the difference in a business model and a business plan? Well, the business plan is very comprehensive, includes a lot of information. The business model is just kind of that snapshot of the business. And it really kind of outlines, okay, here's who we are. It's almost like if you're a public speaker and you have a bio and it says, here's who we are and here's what we do. That's what your business model is. It kind of, in a nutshell, clarifies what exactly we're talking about. So it's, what is your plan? How do you plan to make this into a legit, real business? So it answers some of the very basic questions like, who will be your customers? How will you make money? What will you sell? And where will your startup money come from? So again, those are some of those very basic questions that we think about when we're looking at what this business model is going to look like. The big picture for the business model is that last bullet point, which it's just how everything fits together. So you may have this customer group, you may have this kind of product, you may want to sell at the farmer's market, whatever. But instead of giving just kind of little bits and pieces of information that are really kind of disjointed, the business model helps you take some of those really key important issues and link them together almost like in a puzzle and say, this is how it all fits. This is how we're going to make this work. Which brings us then to the business model canvas. And so if this is what we're trying to do, put together this business model, then obviously we can put together a business plan, but there's a step kind of in between, like an intermediate step, if you will, which is putting together the business model canvas. And you can see it says here, it provides a clear way to put all those pieces together with just one simple sheet of paper. And if you've never seen a business model canvas, it's pretty fascinating. Actually, if you don't mind, just take a moment and comment in the chat section and just let me know if you're familiar with the business model canvas concept and what it looks like, and just put yes or no in the chat section. I'm going to take a quick poll and see where we are on that. Okay, so I've got a few responses. I'm going to give you just another minute and hear from the rest of you. I'm getting mostly kind of a mix between no and sort of. And I can tell you, for instance, if you do work with Ben at Blue Ridge, he uses the business model canvas a lot in his counseling appointments with new business owners, because it's just kind of a simplified version. It's a little less intimidating. Well, it's a lot less intimidating, I think. It's a lot simpler. It's a lot cleaner. People like working with a business model canvas when they're kind of just sort of fleshing out their ideas and figuring out how this is all going to work. So again, it's just mapping it out and putting it together. And you'll see when we look at what it looks like, that it does sort of look like a puzzle. So what would be a reason to use a business model canvas as opposed to another tool such as a business plan? And the one thing that a lot of people like about a business model canvas is that it's very visual. So you can notice that a lot of people are visual learners, and especially people that are more artistic or creative, entrepreneurs, sitting down and, I mean, it almost feels in some ways like writing a term paper. We've used that comparison before. It's doing research, writing things down, making sure your grammar's correct, making sure your punctuation's there, making sure everything's spelled correctly, that sort of thing. And it is pretty tedious as someone just mentioned in the chat section. It is tedious to put together a business plan, even if you do one of the more basic simplified outlines. Making that into an actual Word document can be very, very involved. So some people like the simplicity of it. They like the visual nature of it. It's also easy to understand for different reasons. And I think you'll see why we say that here in a minute when we kind of go through it. It's also very flexible. I can tell you that I have worked with numerous businesses over the years on putting together a business, putting together a business model canvas. And with that business model canvas, there are lots of different ways to do it. And what I have been known to do before is things simply like get Post-it notes out and say, okay, let's work on this section of the business model canvas. And let's piece together how this will work. And let's each put an idea or a thought on a sticky note, and let's post it on the board. So the flexibility of that, what I've been known to do when I've worked with companies on this is things like we put the Post-its up there, maybe almost like a brainstorming way, and then we start peeling some of them off. And so you can get one of these. I mean, obviously, if you're working on it for yourself, you can just have it on a regular sort of, 8x10 piece of paper. But you can also have them blown up to poster size, have it laminated, hang it on your wall, and then keep it kind of as a working, moving thing with these Post-it notes. So I like the flexibility of it and the simplicity of it in a lot of ways. The other thing about the business model canvas is it's really good at showing the connections. You'll notice that anything that you change in a business plan affects something else. And so when you're reading a document, a lot of times it's hard to make those connections. So you're looking at it and you're saying things like, okay, I just changed my price point on my product, or I just started this new offering. Now you have to go through and read a regular business plan document and figure out where those changes need to take place. And sometimes you can miss things. But on this canvas, and again, it may be hard to imagine if you haven't seen it before, but we're going to look at an example here in just a moment. On this canvas, you can see it visually, and you can say, ooh, if that changes, I'm going to need to pull that Post-it note off, or I'm going to need to mark through that word and change it to something else. And so it's living, it's editable. You can make changes as you go along. It's also easy to explain, again, because of that simplicity and that visual nature. It's easy to show it to someone else and then kind of quickly get a good feel for exactly what we're talking about. So here's what the business model canvas looks like. And I had to search long and hard to find one that would read on this PowerPoint slide really well. And that's why it says business model canvas for PowerPoint. But this is what it looks like. Again, I mentioned it does look a little bit like a puzzle. You can see it's laid out to where everything fits nice and neat on one sheet of paper. But your segments look like this. If you'll start to the right and kind of work backwards, we've got customer segments on the far right. We've got customer relationships. We've got channels. In the middle, we've got value proposition. To the left, we've got key activities, key resources, and key partners. And then on the bottom, we have our cost structure and our revenue stream. So that's what the business model canvas looks like. And we're going to talk about each one of these here a little bit more in just a moment. But I wanted you to definitely see what the business model canvas looks like. A couple of important things to note. Number one, you can use a business model canvas for absolutely any business on the face of the earth. So it could be a huge multi-million dollar corporation, or it could be a small startup business with one employee. The business model canvas is going to be relevant regardless. And so that's one of the things that's really great about it. Another thing is, let me just ask you, is there any part of this that sticks out to you in terms of where it's located, or it's not really a trick question, but I guess what I'm trying to point out is this value proposition is one of the larger segments, and you'll notice that it is smack dab in the middle of this this canvas. And there's a reason for that. The value proposition, which again, we'll get into a little more detail in a moment, but the value proposition is really the heart and soul of any business. Anybody who works with a company will constantly kind of emphasize over and over again, what's your value proposition? It's also known as your unique selling proposition. It's what makes you different, what makes you unique, what makes you special. Why do customers come to you? And it's very important to kind of note that and to see how that's strategically placed in the business model canvas, right in the middle of everything, because it is probably the most important section or component of the business model. Another point of interest is that typically we like to think of it as the things on the right-hand side of the business model canvas are things that bring money into the business. The things on the left-hand side are things that take money out of the business. So just kind of as a general principle, if you will, the right-hand side is focused on areas and issues that bring money in, and the left-hand side where money is kind of going out for us. So the areas of the canvas, and we'll look at those in detail a little bit more. Okay, so the first thing that we're looking at is customer segments. And that just answers the question, kind of that big overarching question is, who is your customer? What do they look like? What do they think? What do they do? What do they buy? Who are they in terms of all of those differentiating factors that we can look at when it comes to business? So that includes demographics. So are your customers mostly men or women? Are they of a certain age group? Do they have a certain hobby or a certain lifestyle or a certain affiliation? And so that's really important to be able to quantify who your customer segments are. And it may not just be that you have one customer segment, you may have different customer segments for different things that you offer. So that's a place for you to analyze that and think about that. Another area is customer relationships. And that just means, how do you get customers in the door? How do you build that relationship with them? How do you make them aware? How do you get them interested? How do they figure out who you are and what you can do for them? So that could involve, obviously, some marketing strategies. That could involve some customer service tactics, or some of those different kinds of areas of your business. Next, we have channels. And so channels are things like, basically, how do you get your product or service out into the market? So it's essentially distribution is what it is. How does it get out there? The other one, like I said, probably the big one is value proposition. You can spend a lot of time figuring this out, but it's always a huge red flag if a business doesn't really understand their value proposition. then that's a big red flag, and that's a problem, because without a solid value proposition, you really don't have anything to base the rest of your business model on. This is the foundation for a successful business model. So that involves analyzing your competitors, knowing what customers want and need and prefer, figuring out how what you offer is better, faster, any more quality. It could be even just something that's very unique or special about the way you do something. It may be a process that you use. It may be an ingredient or a material that you use. It may be a certain function that you provide. But it has to be, you have to be able to quantify how you are different or unique or special compared to every other alternative that your customers have. And it takes some work to get there. It's either a process of identifying what it is, and if you don't have it, like if you work and you just can't really put your finger on what it is, then you may not actually have one. That means you need to create one. So the next section is key activities. That just means kind of, what do you do when you show up to work in the morning, or show up to your business, you and your team of 3 people. What is it that everyone's doing? What are the key activities that get done? So a lot of that deals with sales and customers, but there are other things that happen. There's paying bills. There's sending out invoices. There is maintaining equipment. There's all kinds of different things that have to happen, activities that need to take place to keep your company functioning and running effectively. So what are all of those key activities where if one of those sort of fell through the cracks, that would change the way things look and really impact your business negatively? It's important to know those, as well as what are the key resources that your business needs to be successful. So those key resources could be, it could potentially mean, it might be like a specific person that you need to have in order to make this work. It could be a specific piece of equipment that you need. It might be a key partnership. It may be a particular supplier or vendor, or a specific account where the majority of your sales come from. But what are those things that you need? What are those resources that you need? It may be a line of credit that you have that you run up and down constantly. If you didn't have it, that would really affect the way that you operate. So what are those resources that you need in your company in order to carry on business as usual? Key partners. So key partners and key resources could have a little bit of overlap, but key partners really kind of mean, what are those things that you can outsource that you don't necessarily have to do internally? So is it, you have an attorney, or you have an accountant, you have a landlord, you have maybe some contractors who do certain jobs with you. But who are those key partners, those key partnerships that kind of keep everything moving for you? And then the last 2 are the financial section of the canvas, just like the financial section of the business plan. One is cost structure. So cost structure basically means, what is it that we pay out? What do we pay out? What do we pay it for? What does that look like? What's our overhead? What's our profit margin? All of those different kinds of financial components related to the cost and the expenses that we're paying out. And then the other financial side is the revenue stream. So cost structure really is the money that goes out. Revenue streams is the money that comes in. And so we need to identify, okay, if I have a product and a service, let's say that I sell tires, and then I also do oil changes. I would need to know what percentage of my revenue comes from retail tire sales and what percentage comes from service oil change, and looking at the different products or services that we offer, and where we see the most revenue coming from. And there are also other revenue streams that we don't always necessarily identify. That could be some kind of offsets, whether it's a monthly subscription cost or a fee that we charge people when they do a specific add-on or whatever. But it's important to note where all of those sort of buckets of revenue come from so that we can identify that in the long term. I'm laughing at your comment, Nicole. And Nicole saying, I've definitely done my business model canvas wrong so far. And that's okay, because that's kind of what we're going over here. And it can be confusing. If someone doesn't sit down and explain these items to you, it can be a little bit confusing. And Nicole's asked that I restate what channels means. So channels is what I would look at when I'm talking about distribution. So channels basically means I, as the business, have whatever my product or my service is. The channel is how it gets into the hands of the customer. So the channels really could be, for instance, if I wholesale to a company, that would be a channel, a wholesale account to another store. If I go to the farmer's market, that's a channel. If I have website sales, that's a channel. If I go door to door, that's a channel. It's just all the different sort of sales platforms or sales outlets, if you will, however you get your product into the hands of your customer. All right, so I'm going to pause my screen share here for just a second, and I'm going to reshare it, and we're going to watch a short video that kind of reviews a little bit about what we just talked about. So hang on just a second. Okay, I'm going to start a video here in just a second. When I do start that video, when it starts playing, if you could, at least a couple of you, just comment and let me know that you can hear the sound from the video, that would be great.
An organization's business model can be described with 9 basic building blocks: your customer segments, your value proposition for each segment, the channels to reach customers, customer relationships you establish, the revenue streams you generate, the key resources and key activities you require to create value, the key partners, and the cost structure of the business model. But it's not sufficient to just enumerate the 9 building blocks. What you really want to do is to map them out on a pre-structured canvas. This is what we call the business model canvas, a tool that helps you map, discuss, design, and invent new business models. Let's briefly go through the 9 building blocks, starting with the customer segments. These are all the people or organizations for which you're creating value. This includes simple users and paying customers. For each segment, you have a specific value proposition. These are the bundles of products and services that create value for your customers. The channels describe through which touchpoints you're interacting with customers and delivering value. The customer relationships outline the type of relationship you're establishing with your customers. The revenue streams make clear how and through which pricing mechanisms your business model is capturing value. Then you need to describe the infrastructure to create, deliver, and capture value. The key resources show which assets are indispensable in your business model. The key activities show which things you really need to be able to perform well. The key partners show who can help you leverage your business model, since you won't own all key resources yourself, nor will you perform all key activities. Then once you understand your business model's infrastructure, you'll also have an idea of its cost structure. So with the business model canvas, you can map out your entire business model in one image. This works for startup entrepreneurs just as well as for the most senior executives.
Okay. So I like showing that little video because it shows, again, the visual really of how these work together. So I think it's very valuable to see. And I like the little truck that takes the value proposition, the gift image of the value proposition, and it picks up the value proposition and then it drives it over to the customer segments. And then it says, okay, the customer segments like that value proposition. So they give you a little money bag and then you drop it off in the revenue streams because that's what they're doing. They're providing money for you in that way. So anybody have any feedback or anything you want to share with the group related to kind of that video and how it showed how it all fits together? Nicole says it's so helpful, and it is. I really think when you just look at that, just like Nicole, you had mentioned earlier how you felt like you'd filled yours out wrong, but that would be very common to do that when you're trying to just look at those terms and you're not really sure exactly what it means. So you've got those quadrants, you see how they fit together. But again, I love the video because it literally shows how you can basically get in a car and drive back and forth between them and how they all kind of fit together and work. And I love, again, seeing that canvas kind of spread out. I have been known to create one as large as sort of the top of a big desk, like a big rectangular shaped desk, and put it on the wall of an entrepreneur's office and said, every day that you have a thought or a brainstorm or you see something that's successful or working well, add it on a sticky note and put it up here in one of these quadrants where it belongs. And that's just helping us tweak and get our business model more and more secure. One of the things I wanted to mention is that creating a business model, a good business model, is about mapping out how you will create that ongoing value for your customers. So the other thing about a business model canvas that's very important to notate is that it's very customer centric. It's very focused on the customer, what you can do for the customer, how you can help the customer, what the customer wants, that sort of thing. And that's how most successful businesses operate, is seeing everything through the eyes of the customer. Elements of a strong business model, and this is, for a minute, just forget that we were talking about the business model canvas, okay? And this is just in an article that was published recently in Entrepreneur Magazine. It said the elements of a strong business model, and it gave us 7 things. 1, it says make sure you identify your specific audience. So again, what does that mean? identifying your specific audience. It just means figuring out exactly who your audience is, who your target market is. It also says to establish a really strong process. Before your business can go live, you really need to understand what activities are required to make your business model work. And if you don't have that understanding, then it's going to be hard for you to deliver. A third, it said record your key business resources. So again, what does your company need to carry out your daily process? How do you find new customers? How do you reach your business goals? And what are those resources that you need available to you to be able to do that? A common resource example could be something like a website or a business loan or a warehouse or something like that. Develop a strong value proposition. So how will your company stand out among the competition? Again, how do you become innovative? How do you do something better, faster, that sort of thing? Determine your key business partners. So again, no business can function without those key partners. So who are those partners? Who do you need in order to be successful? And then create a demand generation strategy. So what does that mean? Again, that means how are you going to create something that is in demand, that customers want, that they can't get enough of? And then the last one is to leave room for innovation. And so this was listed in a very recent article, again, of elements of a strong business model, just a model in general. And I want you to see how much the business model canvas overlaps with these items that are listed as important elements for the best business models that exist. So let's look at a case study. Okay, yeah, let's look at a case study really quickly and talk about that in terms of what this looks like. So there is a company called Travel Co. And this is basically a travel company that sort of like a basic kind of travel agency, that sort of thing. It's recently been experiencing some trouble with generating enough revenues to sustain itself. So the first thing that they've identified is that there are three main competitors in the market, and it's really divided equally. The market share is kind of divided equally between these three. And so Travel Co. has one third of the market. Another company called Journey Time has a third, and then Tourism Inc. has a third. And they all three actually have been experiencing problems since this whole obvious crisis happened with travel in the time of COVID. So in order to remain competitive, they're really going to have to adjust what they do. And so they said, we really need to go back to the drawing table and come up with some ideas. So they started by kind of working through the business model canvas. Again, remember that Travel Co. is a basic travel agency, and they do offer complimentary products and services to go along with that. Journey Time, who is the other company, they're really well known for their excellent customer service and support. And then the third company is Tourism Inc. So they are known for all of their kind of innovative packages. So because they have these complimentary products and service, including some travel destination accommodations and that sort of thing. They wanted to kind of work through this canvas, look at their business model, and really kind of determine what kind of adjustments are we going to have to make. So let's look at the different areas of the business model canvas. And the reason we're doing this is just to give you a basic idea of what it looks like for a company to go through this. So we talked about their current strategy. Let's talk about their value proposition. They have decided that their value proposition now is all-inclusive travel packages, their ability to customize, and then these add-on services that they provide, including things like travel insurance, pickup service, travel to and from airports, that sort of thing. Their prices are also pretty good as well. So they've sat down at the drawing table and said, when we're looking at these other competitors, what are we competing on? And that's where they came up with their answer to that. Again, those all-inclusive travel packages, their ability to customize these travel services, and then these additional services that they add on, not to mention, again, their prices are very competitive. So the next section for them to look at is their customer segments. And they said that they want to go after a very niche market. So not the masses, not the general population, but they want to focus on a very niche market, and that's being customers that desire a high-end, customized, all-inclusive destination. So in that customer segment where it says, who is your customer, that's what they've kind of mapped out as theirs. Again, customers that desire a customized, high-end, all-inclusive destination. Their customer relationships. They offer personal assistance and have these personal, again, these customized products and services. They also have staff in their office all the time. And so it's not like you have to make an appointment to come in. It's not that you only deal with your particular representative, but they actually staff their office all the time so that someone can always get a live voice, can always walk in and see a smiling face. But that personal touch, that personal assistance is the way they identify their customer relationships. Their revenue streams. Revenue streams for them, they determined come from these travel packages. They also are getting commissions from some of these tour operators because they're driving their clients to certain tours. So they're getting a kickback from that. Also a kickback from hotels, resorts, and others. So it's the sale of the packages, but it's also commissions and kickbacks from these certain vendors that they've established these strong relationships with. That's where their primary revenue streams come from. Their key activities. So their key activities obviously include sales, but another key activity for this company is marketing. So it's not just the customer interface. Marketing is a huge component of what they have to do daily. They also have to spend a significant amount of time locating and designing these new travel packages. So they don't just design a package and then that's kind of the package that they keep for the year. They're constantly sourcing brand new experiences and brand new customized alternatives. So that is not something that necessarily translates immediately into revenue, but that is a key activity that they have to spend time on a regular basis. And then also their customer relationship management is a huge component. So they're kind of staying in touch with all of their existing customers. They're wanting to provide them with a great experience, and they're wanting to become their go-to travel agency. Their key resources, they need skilled employees, they need a good reputation, they need to associate with strong brands, and they've chosen select brands that they do choose to associate with. That can evolve and change to a degree. But those are very key and critical to their process. They've also purchased a significant customer relationship management software package that helps them manage that process. And they've also built a really strong website that adds to a good customer experience. So all of those are key resources that are absolutely critical for them to be successful. Key partners. So in the travel industry, it's no surprise that it would be airlines, hotels, resorts, insurance providers, tour operators, even in some situations, maybe customs or border, those sorts of kind of partners that are needed in order for them to provide their customers with a strong and engaging experience. And then cost structure, what are they spending money on? So a huge cost structure is going to be their overhead, which includes rent and utilities. Their marketing expenses are significant. And then their salaries and commissions are also very expensive. But those are all costs that are integral to their operation and are absolutely necessary. So that's a very basic example. It's also an industry I think everybody is somewhat familiar with. And so I wanted to go through that and give you an idea of what it would look like to kind of on just a very, very basic level, look at some of the things that would get filled in those categories for this business. And another thing is to do a SWOT analysis. So we did a SWOT analysis in our session last time. But a SWOT analysis, SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so as they're doing this reconfiguration, a SWOT analysis is also something that's going to help them determine if their business model is strong or not. So they want to look at some of those different things that we have talked about before. But again, that SWOT analysis is saying, okay, who's your competition? What are the riskier approaches to offer this product or to do it this way? But in order to use the SWOT analysis effectively, you really have to know a lot of information about the business and about the industry. And so it's a really great opportunity for you to kind of dig in and research some of the things that you don't really have any control over. Okay, I have another video that I'm going to show you really quickly. So let me see if this will work. This guy is a little dry, but he gives a really great example. He goes through a couple of examples. I am choosing to use his example of Gillette. And so he talks about the business model canvas with a company that we're all familiar with, Gillette. And I just want us to see this really quick. So again, when this video starts, let me know if the sound works for you or not.
Now, the third example we're going to look at is that of Gillette. And Gillette's business model is based on the bait and hook business pattern or business model pattern. And that pattern is characterized by an attractive, inexpensive, or even free initial offer that encourages ongoing future purchases of related products or services. Now, within this business model, the bait is often provided at a loss, subsidized eventually by the hook. So in Gillette's case, they offer an inexpensive razor handle, and that's the bait, and then continued purchases of the blades represent the hook. So this business model is also very popular in SaaS businesses, software as a service businesses, where typically a free initial month leads to a monthly subscription. So in the diagram here, you can see that we've used the thickness of the arrows to indicate where the revenue is coming from. So as you can see here, all revenues are generated by just a single customer segment, customers. But within that, the vast majority of revenues come from frequent blade replacements, with just minor revenues coming from the purchase of handles. Now, if you look at the left-hand side of Gillette's business model canvas, you'll notice how all major costs are aligned with delivering the value proposition. So for example, marketing costs help to build Gillette's strong brand, and R&D costs help to ensure that the blade and handle technology is unique and proprietary. So in summary, the business model canvas provides a way to show the key elements of any business model on a single sheet.
Okay, so I want to spend just a minute looking here at the business model canvas that we created for Gillette. I think everybody would do it a little bit differently, and I certainly would put more detail to this, but this is a good place to get started. Customer segments. Clearly, I'm not a fan of the word customers there because that is not very descriptive at all of who Gillette's customer segments are. We could get much more specific about that in terms of their demographics and even their psychographics to be able to do a better job of that. But I do like the example of the bait and hook where they're showing that they sell something at a deep discount that's reusable, to get you to come back and buy a complimentary product that can only be purchased through them. So if you spend a little bit of money on this really nice handle, you're going to come back and get those blades over and over again. And so that shows how these revenue streams work. And that's their value proposition in a way, is they provide you with this really nice, somewhat expensive handle, or the big body of the razor, and then but then you have to come back to them to get the blades to go with it. You can see that the customer relationships is they've built in sort of that locked in relationship by providing you with part of the product at a very minimal cost. Their channels are retail. Again, they could be more specific, whether it's big box stores, whether it's things like grocery stores, drug stores, your big box Walmart, Target stores. Like, you could do some differentiating between that to figure out. You also may have some direct sales in some cases, so it would be important to kind of be able to identify that. But they have talked about their key partners being the manufacturers that they use and the retailers. They would be lost without those partnerships right there. And it's important to keep that in mind. Even a large company like Gillette, if they were to lose their manufacturing facility or damage a couple of relationships with their big retail partners, that would flip their business model upside down in just a split second. Obviously, their key activities, that includes a lot of things related to research and development, the logistics of either production or outsourcing. And again, this is a large scale company. And so it's a little bit different than what we would look at for our small mom and pop businesses. But I think it's very useful. We went through the travel agency example. We went through this example with Gillette. And now I think it's important for us to think about how this would look with our own individual business. So again, as we come back to it, I want to pull up the business model canvas one more time and just show you what this looks like. You can go online and you can Google this, and you can download an image or a PDF, print this off and work on it. You can also, of course, draw it out yourself. And so you can get started on it right away. Again, feel free to use whatever writing instrument that you want to use. I would suggest a pencil, or I really, really like the notion of sticky notes. Now, if you're keeping it to the size of one page, a sticky note may not be as effective. But if you are putting a big poster size thing on the wall that you're looking at every day, then those Post-it notes are a good strategy and a good way to utilize that. So do we have any questions or comments from anybody? Yes, Nicole, one very large page. What I did in truth is I use flip charts a lot for my presentations and some of the work that I do with clients. So those huge rip off and stick easel pads, presentation pads, I would take a few of those, 2 or 3 of those, and put them together on the wall, and then use a ruler and some markers and draw out my business model canvas, and then use the Post-it notes. Yeah. The good thing about the Post-it notes is if you don't like a mess, if you like organization, you can easily rip off a Post-it note and then you never knew that it was there. And you can keep adding and keep changing, and it doesn't make me hesitant to write something down. Even if I'm just sort of brainstorming and thinking about something, I can go ahead and put it up there and see how it sits there for a couple of days and decide whether I want to keep it or remove it. So again, this is something Ben Smith with Blue Ridge Community College is very familiar with, the business model canvas. He does work through the business model canvas with clients on a regular basis. I would suggest you guys go home and start working on your own. And then as you need support and assistance, reach out to your small business center and ask them to help you work through it. But again, it's a great tool, much more simplified and easy to handle than a full-on business plan, a full-on Word document. It's easier to manage, it's easier to work with, and it's a lot more fun to look at as well. So keep that in mind, and hopefully that will be a good tool for you to use as you're working through your own business. Any other comments or questions before we wrap? All right, well, I hope you guys got something useful out of our session today. I did see a comment earlier. Let me go back to an earlier comment where someone asked, let's see. I did have the question earlier that says, do you have an alternative form for nonprofits? And the answer for that is no. But a nonprofit could easily use this exact same business model canvas. All of the same quadrants still apply. The wording could change slightly, but in revenue streams, it might be like funding streams or something like that. It just kind of depends on your organization, but this canvas works also very effectively for nonprofits. And then I also had the question that you did not see other sessions. So they're not listed as a series, but what I can tell you is Blue Ridge Community College every other Tuesday at 1 o'clock is offering a class. And so I am putting these together as a quote unquote series, but they are standalone. So if you want to attend future sessions that relate to what we're talking about, it would be every other Tuesday at 1 o'clock from 1 to 2 at the Blue Ridge Small Business Center. So you can look on their website, and if it's the every other Tuesday at 1 o'clock, then you know it's part of this program that we're offering. So again, thanks for sharing your hour with us. We appreciate you. Hope you have a great rest of your evening, and good luck.